Art Studio. We're going to export all those parts. So you right click, go export. It'll have the name. We'll just keep the same naming convention. STL is what we want. So you have a whole bunch of different examples, binary in millimeters, because that's what our slicing software is going to read it in, medium resolution, and download. And then you would hit export. I've already done that. So open up your slicing software, whatever you use, go File, New, go find your first part that you want to import. So I'm going to go File, Import. We're going to scale these. I'm just going to start with number 1 just to keep it in order. So there's part 1. We'll do these tubes first. We need this to be scaled, so I'm going to scroll out with the wheel. And the controls will be a little bit different than what you were using in Onshape. That's okay. So there's our first front frame tube. We're going to need 2 of those. And I need to scale that down first. So we're going to go a quarter scale, so 25% of what you see there. I'm going to go in. We're going to leave it on that side so we don't have to change anything. I'm going to move that into place where it'll print out. Not too close. Now I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to clone it. Hit OK, and then that'll prevent me from having to scale it again. And I don't want them too close to each other. Go File, Import. Trying to find you another part that will require a different setup. And we're going to scale that down. So let's go scale 25%. There we go. We'll bring that one over. That's a motor mount, so we're going to need 2 of those. So let's clone it. And you get the idea. We're just placing these in different locations. Rotate that just to show you. I'm going to pull on the blue arrow here. I'm going to line it up, close that out, and now I can move that over. So that was rotation. I'm going to right click and clone that one so I don't have to repeat that process or repeat the rotation. And now we can move on and import some other of those that's going to have a different tool to use. You notice how I built it. It's standing straight up. That's how it was brought in, on how it was built in the CAD software. So before, let's go ahead and scale it first. You've seen that. So we scaled it, but now we don't want it to print like this. We would have to have supports, and we don't want supports. So left click on Lay on Face, click on the side of it. I'm going to scroll that around. And now we can left click on it again. We're going to rotate it. You've seen this. Blue arrow. I'm going to bring that around. Now, one that I did skip on this print is the hoop segment, because they're going to take up, those top hoop segments are going to take up a big majority of the print surface. And so I'm going to have to print those on a different setup. So let's clone this, move it down. If we need to, we can kind of move it around, but I think those will print right there. So the reason I'm naming these, so if I ever want to print off multiple small scale assemblies once I get it, I don't have to redo all of that, so I like to save them as an assembly. Now you notice we've got a warning down here. It's too close to something, probably either the edge or itself, but that's fine. I know it'll print like this. I'm going to close that error message out. I'm going to move that around a little bit and see if we can get that to go away. Let's go back to prepare. I'll do one last small adjustment. All right, not worried about that. Let's go preview. All right, everything's good. We're not going to need any supports on that. So if you have any overhangs, I'm going to close that out. I'm not worried about it. If you have any overhangs where a part goes greater than 45 degrees, sometimes even less than that, it'll give you a warning that you need supports. You would left click here, enable supports. We don't need that. So now that we've got that set, we can go ahead and print plate. You see that our printer pops up here. If it doesn't, you can hit refresh or go back into the settings, try to find your printer. And now we're going to send that to the printing device and let that print out. And then once it prints, we'll do the next setup. Okay, so we arranged these other ones, but we had to go in and add some ports. And here's why we had to add supports for this. You notice how these raise up, and there's a lot of tubes here. The tubes really won't be much of an issue, but this arch that raises up, they're going to print supports to connect to that, because if not, it could sag, and so we needed supports there. So let's go ahead and go preview, and it gives a warning, but I've checked that they're far enough apart. It's just making sure that we've checked it, and you can see where those supports build up. They'll break off fairly easy, and it doesn't look like we have really anything that's going to be in the way. We've got some supports there showing up in the green highlighted. Now we can go print plate, and this is going to give us the remainder of parts, all the way from parts 11 and part 20, and also those hoop segments, both the top and bottom. So let's go ahead and send that to print. That 3D print finished, and that should be all the parts except for the engine. Oh man, those come off easy. All right, hang on just one sec. Let me grab those. Those hoop segments broke off pretty easy. So this still has all the connections on it. So I'm going to go ahead and take those off so you can kind of bend the plate a little bit. That should soften those up enough to where they come off. They're not going to be super strong just because they're so small. But I'll take these off, we'll assemble those. The only thing I've got left is to print the engine. I'm going to go ahead and print it and put it on. And then once we do that, we'll be finished. That's going to take a while. I think it took 8 hours last time I printed one. And we'll assemble all of these onto one frame. Let's go in, we'll go File, New. We're going to go File, Import. We're going to go find the engine that we exported. So let's scroll across. Now, some of these are different settings. You can resize some of those connections if you want to keep the original measurement. Keep it at the exact measurement it would be in full scale. You can resize it when you scale. Tubes are a little bit smaller than the connections, like 0.73 instead of 3/4 of an inch for the tubing. And then for the connections, I set those at 0.77. So I have them set, but you're still going to get shrinkage, and they may be difficult to connect. This is our DLE 170. It's huge. We're going to scale it down to 1/4 size. There we go. Let's go into supports. We're definitely going to have to enable supports here. Build plate only. Let's preview this. I'm going to close that out. Let's just see what kind of warning we get on preview. We'll probably get another warning. Oh, we didn't get one. Okay, so it's building up off the plate. These are going to be hard to clean off. Now you can, if you have an AMS that allows you to put multiple filaments, there is a filament that you can put in that puts a thin layer of that filament between your PLA and your supports so that the supports break off really. Be careful around some of the smaller parts when you're cleaning off the PLA supports if you don't have that filament that allows you to create a thin layer between your supports and your product. All right, so we're ready. Let's go ahead. We've got the build plate ready in the printer. And let's print that off. Let's see. Looks like it's going to take 2 hours to print this at a 1/4 scale, so not so bad. And once we get that printed, we should be able to assemble all the parts. All right, we've got the engine printed. So pretty small, 1/4 scale. We've got to clean off all the supports. These are 3mm bolts. I didn't run them all the way in yet. And they are 20mm long. I did not put the other 4 through, even though I checked and made sure the alignment was correct, but I just super glued on the engine. And I use those same bolts over here on the swing arms to mount those. And those were the closest thing I could find that would be about, if we scaled those up, to about 10mm in size. I don't think we'll need very many changes. I think the one main change I'm going to make is these spar hoop connections. I'm going to cap those so that the tube can't push out. But everything looks good. Everything mounted up.